our guest needs no introduction, but I'm going to give one to him anyway. You may know him from SNL, but I know him from The Nation as the justice correspondent and the host of the legal podcast, Contempt of the Court. He's an Alfred Nobler Fellow at the Type Media Center. His first book is the New York Times bestseller, Allow Me to Retort, A Black Guy's Guide to the Constitution. Elie Mystal.
Michael, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing, brother?
Great.
What's
All
going
things
on?
considered, doing a little Kenan Thompson impression in my spare time. I'm,
What's
making
it
it happen.
What's it like to see yourself on SNL?
Look, I was playing video games because it was Saturday night, and that's what one does.
Mhm.
And my phone starts, buzz, 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 buzz. And honestly, Michael, the last time my phone buzzed like that, Ruth Bader Ginsburg had died.
Yeah.
And the time before, Antonin Scalia had died. So as I'm leaving my gaming chair to go to my phone, I'm thinking, oh, a Supreme Court justice has died, right?
Yes.
Like, that's what I'm expecting. And then it's just SNL, turn on SNL. I'm like, oh, this is happening now. Okay.
That's got to be wild. What were you playing, by the way? I'm playing Spider-Man Remastered.
Nice. It was just the new season of Diablo 4 dropped, so I was playing some Diablo with my boys.
I'm becoming more of a gamer these days.
Yeah, it was a little bit because these are friends that I've had since like college and stuff like that. It was a little like, sorry guys, gotta go. I'm apparently on SNL.
Talk about a humble brag. Like, right? Sorry, got to put the video games controller down for a minute. Evidently, I'm on SNL.
Right.
Jesus.
So whatever. It was a fun time. What I've taken it as is kind of a lagging indicator that whatever the hell I'm doing is working. So keep working.
Congratulations. You have a new piece out in The Nation talking about Biden and judges. And tell us a little about it.
Yeah, so Donald Trump, when he was in office with Mitch McConnell in charge, appointed a record number of judges throughout the federal judiciary. We live with those kind of leave behind landmines all the time. If you look at any decision that you want, any issue you want to talk about, we have federal judges making adverse decisions against our rights and freedoms. Right? Joe Biden and Dick Durbin, with their power, have failed, frankly, to keep up with Trump's pace. And one of the big reasons for that is that Durbin is honoring an old Senate tradition called the blue slip process, which allows any senator basically to object to a judge who would be appointed to oversee their state. Now that is
just a tradition, right? It's a tradition. It's not written into anything. It's not a requirement. It's just
not a statute,
not
a law.
It's a nicety.
Right? It's a nicety that Mitch McConnell, ignored when it came time to appoint uber conservative judges to the Ninth Circuit that covers California or the Second Circuit that covers New York, right? But it's a nicety that Durbin and Biden are honoring during their time in power, and that's why right now, as we head into 2024, we have just about 60 open judicial seats, and Biden has only made nominations for 22 of them. And it's
Talk just about the footprint and why it matters, though. Like, how long the footprint can be for a judge put on a bench.
Right, because they serve for life, right? And so, a president is only going to serve for 4 to 8 years. Senators have to be elected every 6 years. Congress people have to be elected every 2 years. But if you get a judge in to make policy, that lasts for the rest of their life. And what conservative justices do is make policy. So think about something as hot as the abortion pill case, right? Why are abortion pills under threat? Because one conservative judge in Texas ruled that the FDA couldn't authorize mifepristone, which is the abortion medication, right? That's one judge. At the circuit level, at the lowest federal level, one judge made that decision, and now the whole country has to stand on ceremony and wait for the Supreme Court to maybe, possibly, hopefully, someday overturn it, right? One judge has incredible power in this country, and again, we've got 40 that we're just leaving on the table right now because of an old Senate, as you put it, nicety. It's malpractice, and that's what I wrote about.
And this has been something that Democrats have just historically been really bad at in terms of laying the foundation for making sure that the next generation of liberal judges are put into place. Can you talk about like
Yeah,
what the Republican system has been?
I think what scientists would say is that Democrats have been stupid when it comes to organizing themselves on the courts. There's a famous quote from Rahm Emanuel, Obama's first chief of staff. Obama comes in, has a lot of support, 60 senators, can do anything. And people are talking to Rahm Emanuel about how we need to remake the federal judiciary and get Obama to appoint a lot of judges. And Rahm Emanuel says, and I quote, "I don't give an F about judges."
You could say fuck on here.
Rahm Emanuel says, "I don't give a fuck about judges."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and that is why Obama, for the first 4 years, was just slow out of the gate when it came to appointing judges. By the end of his term, he kind of started to get it. And this is a constitutional lawyer that was President Barack Obama, right? We can talk about Ruth Bader
Harvard Law
Ginsburg,
Review.
right? We can talk about Ruth Bader Ginsburg not retiring when she possibly had a chance to retire in 2014, allowing Obama to appoint her replacement. Instead, she hangs on. She thinks that Hillary's going to win. Doesn't work out that way for her or the entire country, and now abortion rights are gone. But even in so you would think that you would learn something from those mistakes, but even now, and as I write in my piece in The Nation, even now, there are 17 circuit court judges. So circuit courts are that, the intermediary right below the Supreme Court level judges. 17 who were appointed by Clinton or Barack Obama, who have gotten the opportunity to retire and allow Biden to replace them during his term, right? It's a semi-retirement. They basically retire but keep their full salary, but they can be replaced by a different lifetime appointee. 17 of these people have been eligible for this status in the last year. Only 3 of them have relinquished their power to allow Biden to appoint a younger person who will serve for the next 2 or 3 decades. The other 14 of them are like, looking at the MetLife actuary table and being like, "No, I'm good, bro. Why would I move?" And it's maddening. It's maddening. And I say this all the time. This is why we fail. This is evidence that Democrats simply do not take the courts as seriously as Republicans, which is why the Republicans control the courts and thus control all the rights and all the policies that the courts decide.
Yeah, I mean, Republicans have pipelines for the courts. They literally have foundations that they've created and PACs that they've created to identify judges, to identify prosecutors, people who have zero legal experience. Push them up the pipeline.
I went to Harvard Law School. When I was in law school, I met Leonard Leo, who was the titular head of the Federal Society, gave me his card, and he was straight up like, "We could use you."
Yeah, the line is shorter on the other side.
Right. Like, I remember he said, "You wouldn't have to give up all of your principles. Not all, Michael.
Just some of them.
Just not all. All right."
Clarence did it. You can do it. Come on.
And quite frankly, if I had called him back, if I had taken his card, what Leo would have done, and this is the key thing to understand, from the position of a 22-year-old kid in law school, Leo and his society would have figured out what judge I should clerk for, figured out what jobs I should take, have groomed my career all the way up through, so to the point where now I'm a 45-year-old man and I've been serving as a clerk for whoever and whatever. Now I'm in the position to be a circuit court appointment for the Federal Society, right? Democrats, we don't do that. We don't groom our own talent. We think, the way that I put it before, we think the next Thurgood Marshall is just going to walk through that door, just going to pop up out of the ground, right? Whereas the Federal Society, the Republicans, they're trying to make the next Antonin Scalia. They ain't leaving it to chance, all right? They are developing these people kind of in a test tube while we're waiting for our people to drop out the sky. And it ain't working. And it's not working. And again, this is the kind of focus that the entire party needs to have in terms of controlling the courts, because the Republicans did not control the courts in a day, right? They didn't just, Mitch McConnell did not wake up one day and be like, "I'd like to have the third branch of government," right? They've been doing this for 30 years. The decision in Dobbs overturning Roe, the decision in SFFA overturning affirmative action, these are things that conservatives have been working on for 40 years. And they are reaping their rewards of that work now, while Democrats are still not yet on the field.
And pivoting to what's currently going on in 2024 with the election and Donald Trump, who I know we hate talking about, but God, do we have to. Democrats seem to like we're relying on the courts to save us at the end of the day. There's this belief among Democrats that somehow the courts are going to be the last vestige of democracy. And I don't know. I like from one lawyer to another, that's a real iffy bet.
Right? First of all, right, the courts are fundamentally anti-democratic.
Yes.
They're appointed for life. Nobody gets to vote for them. They can't be removed. It's a fundamentally anti-democratic institution. And so then relying on a fundamentally anti-democratic institution to save democracy.
Yeah, it's like relying on the military.
Right? That's a bit weird, right? That's like having a fat guy like me be your personal trainer, man. Like, maybe.
Like, maybe it'll work.
I can read.
I know a lot of lawyers, and I don't know if I want to rely on lawyers to save the day.
So that's number one. Number two, and I think this is why I think a lot of liberals and people who are watching things get a little bit confused about this. The courts have largely been the most resistant body and institution to the total MAGA Trump takeover, right? Trump filed, 63 election overturning cases and lost 62 of them, right? The courts have been extremely resistant to Trump's attempts to overthrow the election and to do some of his crazier things. There was a stat back when he was in office. Trump's administration lost in federal court more than any other president that we have stats for. All right, he is a consistent loser in federal
just taking
courts.
L's, just
right?
L's.
And so the fact that the courts are more resistant to Trump than really any other institution, like more than Congress, more than the media, like courts are a bulwark against Trump. There's like this belief, because of that, there's this belief, oh, the courts are fine. When the reason why they're holding Trump off kind of at arm's length is because all of these Republicans have all of these things that they want to do that ain't got nothing to do with Trump, right?
Yes.
They want to take away women's rights. They want to take away voting rights. They want to take away minority rights. They can do that without Trump. All they needed from Trump was the appointment. And they kind of got what they needed from him. So there's a tension there between what Republican courts actually want to do and what Trump wants his judges to do, right? Trump thinks that every judge is going to roll out here like Eileen Cannon, right? Some kind of loyalty submission kink and just rule for Trump all the time. That's not how most Republican justices and judges think. It's how some of them do. Eileen Cannon's there, and he's got some other, loyalty appointments throughout the system. But for the most part, they're resistant. So now when you now talk about the Trump trials, the various litigations that he is into, trying to functionally keep himself out of jail, now that tension kind of comes into play. Because while the courts have been resistant to Trump's excesses, they are still fundamentally Republican, and they still fundamentally want Republicans to be in charge, and they want Republican presidents. And Trump is gonna be the Republican nominee. So now you are asking Republican judges who want Republican presidents and Republican policies to kick off the Republican presidential candidate off the ballot, or to allow the Republican presidential candidate to go to jail.
Yeah.
I don't know, bro. I don't know that these Republican judges are going to do that, even though the law is, relatively speaking, pretty clear that Trump shouldn't be on the ballot and should be in the pokey.
I mean, it's like no one remembers 2000 when the Supreme Court stopped the recount in Florida. They didn't have to do that. That was a political question. They didn't have to interfere in that election, but they did. They
2000, Bush v. Gore, 5-4, straight down party lines based on the president who appointed them. And let's remember that because what is conservatives always like? Oh, we believe in states' rights, right? Oh, we believe in letting the states have. What stopping the recount meant was that the conservative Republican judges went into Florida and stopped a process organized under the laws of Florida, right?
Yep.
Florida was saying our laws require us to do this recount, and the Republican judges were like, no, because then Al Gore might win. No, and they just rolled it that way. Sandra Day O'Connor, God rest in peace. She just recently passed away. I'm not trying to speak ill of that, but Sandra Day O'Connor straight up, I didn't want Al Gore to be president.
Yeah.
That's Bush v. Gore. That's 5-4. That's Bush v. Gore, folks. So the Supreme Court has already understood that it has the power to pick presidents. And that could be what we see again. Let's roll this again after the conventions, man.
Ooh,
see where we stand.